Welcome to the Deeper Thinking podcast. The strangest thing about artificial intelligence is not that machines might one day think. It is that thinking already exists. Before any benchmark, before any forecast, before any argument about timelines, there is this one fact. Matter has already become general intelligence once. Carbon, water, electricity, memory, sensation, language, culture, and time have combined into a creature capable of asking what intelligence is. The human brain is the first existence proof. It proves that something like general intelligence is possible because something like general intelligence has already happened. That does not make the brain magical. It makes it evidence. Somewhere inside the long experiment of evolution, a system emerged that could adapt beyond its original environment, invent tools, create mathematics, imagine futures, build institutions, compose music, discover physics, and then turn its attention back on itself. But the brain is proof, not explanation. It shows that general intelligence can exist. It does not tell us exactly how to build it, how to recognize it when it appears in another substrate, or how to control the consequences once it does. That is why artificial intelligence is so difficult to think about clearly. We are not beginning from nothing. We already know the destination is possible. But we do not yet understand the route. A narrow definition of artificial general intelligence, or AGI, therefore feels unsatisfying. A machine that performs useful work is not necessarily generally intelligent. A machine that completes tasks, answers questions, writes reports, generates code, or increases productivity may be extremely valuable and still fall short of the thing we are trying to name. Human intelligence is not impressive only because it solves problems. It is impressive because it maintains contact with reality across changing conditions. It learns when the world pushes back. It updates when prediction fails. It carries lessons from one domain into another. It imagines what is not present, then tests imagination against evidence. It invents new domains, changes the question, builds models of realities it cannot directly see, and creates culture, science, law, myth, technology, and doubt. It does not simply answer the world. It reorganizes the conditions under which the world can be understood. This is the deeper standard. General intelligence is not fluency, usefulness, or economic value alone. It is the capacity to keep a model of reality alive under pressure. It is the ability to notice when the model has failed, to revise it without collapsing, and to act again with better judgment. So the question is not simply whether machines can become more capable. They already have. The question is whether we can build a second existence, an intelligence not grown by evolution but constructed by design. And the harder question follows immediately after it. The first scientific instruments did not think, they revealed. The telescope changed what the eye could reach. The microscope changed what scale the mind could enter. The particle accelerator created conditions in which matter could expose something hidden about itself. None of these instruments understood what they showed. They altered the boundary between human intelligence and reality. Science has always advanced through that boundary shift. A better instrument does not merely add information. It changes what can be noticed, measured, doubted, and explained. It gives reality a new surface. It turns what had been invisible into something thought can begin to work on. Artificial intelligence is stranger than that. It is not only an instrument that reveals more, it may become the first instrument that argues back, not because it is conscious, not because it has intention, not because it possesses wisdom, but because it can enter the movement of inquiry itself. It can compare patterns, generate hypotheses, search vast spaces, propose structures, simulate alternatives, and return with possibilities that human researchers may not have known how to look for. That changes the question. The deepest promise of AI is not simply that science becomes faster. Speed matters, but speed alone is not transformation. The larger shift is that AI may alter what scientists become capable of asking. Older instruments revealed objects. A telescope can show us something unexpected, but it cannot ask why the unexpected thing matters. A microscope can expose a hidden structure, but it cannot suggest which structure should be searched for next. Artificial intelligence begins to matter when it helps turn confusion into a path of inquiry. This is why calling AI a tool is both true and insufficient. A tool extends action. An instrument extends contact with reality, but AI may do something more unusual. It may sit inside the cognitive loop between uncertainty and hypothesis, between evidence and interpretation, between what is known and what might be worth testing next. That does not make it a collaborator in the human sense. Collaborator suggests shared purpose, equal standing and inner life. But tool is too passive. AI occupies a stranger middle position, an engineered system that participates in the formation of questions without becoming the owner of them. If the human brain is the first existence proof, then AI is the attempt to build an instrument from that proof. Not a replica of consciousness, but a system that helps intelligence investigate reality more deeply than unaided intelligence can manage alone. If the first proof gave us science, the second may change the shape of scientific questioning itself. And biology is where we can already see the first signs of that shift, not because life has been solved, but because parts of it are becoming searchable. Life is not a database. That is one reason biology has always been so difficult. A library can be searched, a map can be navigated, a catalogue can be queried. But a cell is not arranged for human understanding. It is layered, fragile, and context-dependent. Its meaning changes with location, timing, concentration, interaction, mutation, and environment. A protein is not just a shape. A molecule is not just a candidate. A drug is not simply something that works or fails. It enters a body, binds or does not bind, dissolves or persists, helps one patient, harms another, and sometimes reveals its consequences only after years of work. Biology is not merely complex, it is complex in motion. This is why the protein prediction breakthrough known as AlphaFold matters beyond protein folding. Its significance is not simply that one biological problem became easier. Its deeper significance is that a region of living complexity became more navigable. Part of nature that had been painfully slow to infer became more searchable, not solved, not made simple, not turned into certainty, but brought closer to the condition of a map, and perhaps more importantly, brought closer to the condition of a question. That is the deeper shift. The breakthrough did not simply answer a biological question. It changed the kinds of biological questions that could be asked at scale. Once a structure can be predicted, a new chain of inquiry becomes possible. What might bind here? What changes under different conditions? What happens if this pocket opens? What compound might fit? What risk might appear before the experiment begins? The breakthrough is not mastery. The breakthrough is navigability. And beyond navigability, askability. Drug discovery has always been a search through an almost impossible space. What target matters? What shape does the protein take? Where might a compound bind? Will that binding hold? Will the body absorb it safely? Will it work in the cell but fail in the patient? Will it pass from promise to medicine or disappear into the long graveyard of plausible ideas? The promise here is not a magic cure machine. It is something more modest and more profound. The compression of search. Protein structure, chemistry, binding, absorption, toxicity, side effects, and compound design become parts of a larger navigational problem. The dream is not to remove experiment. The dream is to make experiment less blind. This is what intelligence does when it becomes scientifically useful. It does not abolish uncertainty. It changes our relationship to uncertainty. It helps turn fog into landscape, landscape into search space, and search space into a sequence of better questions. That is why biology is the right first proof point. Life is not tidy. It does not present itself in human categories. It is not built to be understood. But if artificial intelligence can make even parts of biology more searchable and more askable, then it gives us a glimpse of a larger transformation. Science advances when reality becomes more interrogable. AlphaFold matters because it suggests that intelligence may not only discover answers inside the world, it may help make the world questionable enough for better answers to become possible. Once intelligence can help us search what is hidden, the next question is whether it can help us explore what has not happened yet. The dream is not really to predict the future. The dream is to see consequences before they arrive. That distinction matters. Prediction asks what will happen. Simulation asks what might happen under different conditions. Counterfactual judgment asks a more useful question. What happens if we choose this rather than that. This is where artificial intelligence begins to look less like a search engine and more like a decision machine. Not a machine that decides for us, but one that may help reveal the shape of decisions before reality closes around them. In complex systems, the costliest mistakes often come from acting too early, with too little visibility. Weather is the easiest example because it is already familiar. We cannot control the atmosphere, but we can model it well enough to make better decisions. A forecast does not abolish uncertainty. It gives uncertainty structure. It lets a farmer plant differently, a pilot reroute, a city prepare, a family leave before the flood comes. But weather is only the beginning. Economics is harder still because it contains human beings. A weather system does not hear the forecast and change its mind. A market can. This is why the fantasy of perfect prediction is misleading. The world is not a clock waiting to be read. It is layered, reactive, and emergent. The more human the system becomes, the more difficult it is to simulate cleanly. Yet that does not make simulation useless. It makes the right kind of simulation more important. Imagine being able to test a policy before it reshapes millions of lives. Imagine being able to model how a drug might behave across different patient groups before years are lost. Imagine being able to see not only the first-order effect of a decision, but the second, third, and fourth-order effects that usually remain invisible until they become expensive. That is the counterfactual machine. It does not say, here is the future. It says, here are the futures your decision may be pulling toward you. And this changes the moral weight of intelligence. A more intelligent system is not merely one that knows more facts. It is one that helps action become more responsible. It gives judgment more contact with consequence. It makes reality push back earlier. Human beings have always acted inside partial models of the world. Sometimes those models are good enough. Often they are not. We intervene in systems before we understand them, then call the damage unexpected. If artificial intelligence can improve simulation, its deepest value may not be prediction. It may be hesitation, the capacity to pause before action and ask, what might this decision set in motion? One of the strangest things about intelligence is that it does not only work while it is awake. We often imagine thought as effort. The mind concentrates, compares, calculates, decides. It wrestles with a problem in daylight, then something else happens. The problem is left alone. The body sleeps, and in the morning the answer appears differently. Not always solved, not magically completed, but reorganized. A knot has loosened. A path has become visible. The mind has continued without the conscious self commanding it. This is not incidental. Sleep reveals something important about intelligence. The brain is not a storage device that simply records experience. It selects, compresses, forgets, replays, integrates, and reconfigures. It decides what matters. It folds new experience into older structures. It takes the noise of the day and tries to turn it into usable memory. That is why the idea of a machine that sleeps is so interesting. Not literally sleeps. Not a machine that becomes tired, dreams in the human sense, or drifts through private experience. The deeper question is whether an artificial intelligence can have something like consolidation, a process by which it transforms information into understanding. A system that cannot integrate the past cannot simulate the future well. It may have access to more data, more examples, more records, more documents, more traces of what's happened before. But accumulation is not the same as intelligence. A pile of memory does not become judgment simply by getting larger. Current systems can hold context. They can retrieve documents. They can generate fluent answers from vast statistical patterns. But holding more information is not the same as maintaining better contact with reality. Intelligence is organization. It is the ability to decide what should be retained, what should be discarded, what should be abstracted, and what should force a change in the model. Without consolidation, a system risks becoming either forgetful or cluttered. It remembers too little or carries too much. It repeats what is available rather than integrating what is significant. It may respond well in the moment while failing to develop a deeper relationship between past experience and future judgment. Human memory and imagination are also closer than they first appear. To remember is not only to replay the past. To imagine is not only to invent from nothing. Both involve the construction of scenes. Both draw on fragments, patterns, and relations. A mind that can remember well can often simulate better because it has organized the past into material for possible futures. So the machine that sleeps is really the machine that updates. It is the machine that can pause after experience and ask without words, what has changed? What should now matter more? What assumption has weakened? What pattern has appeared? What old certainty no longer fits? A future intelligence may not need consciousness to need consolidation. It may not need dreams to need something dreamlike, a hidden reordering of what it has encountered, so that the next time it meets the world, it does not merely answer from memory, it understands from change. A system that can reorganize experience may also begin to generate possibilities, but possibility is not yet creativity. Creativity is easy to imitate from the outside. A sentence can sound original, an image can appear strange, a move in a game can surprise every human watching, but surprise is not the same as creation, and novelty is not the same as depth. The harder question is whether a system can generate something new that remains meaningful after the surprise has faded. This is why AlphaGo's Move 37 is such a useful example, and also why it is not enough. The move was beautiful because it did not look human. It seemed to come from somewhere outside the inherited habits of the game. Human experts first thought it was a mistake, then slowly understood that it opened a different path through the board. It did not merely win a point, it changed how Go was played. That is a real kind of creativity, but it is creativity inside a frame. The board already existed. The rules already existed. The aim of the game was already given. AlphaGo found a move that human beings had missed, but it did not invent the game in which the move became meaningful. It explored an existing possibility space with inhuman power. The deeper test is harder. Not can the machine play Go brilliantly, but can it invent Go? Can it create a structure so elegant, deep, constrained, and generative that other intelligences want to inhabit it? Can it produce not just a surprising answer, but a new arena in which surprising answers become possible? This is the difference between optimization and creation. Optimization finds the best move within known rules. Creation changes the field of play. It invents a question, a method, a form, a theory, a genre, a discipline, a problem worth spending a life on. True creativity is not randomness. It is not novelty for its own sake. It is disciplined departure. It breaks from the existing frame while remaining answerable to reality. A new theory must still meet the world. A new game must still be playable. A new form must still hold experience. A new question must open a path that was not visible before. So when we ask whether artificial intelligence can be creative, we should be careful about what we mean. The shallow version is already here. Machines can generate endless variation. The deeper version remains more mysterious. Can a machine invent the frame, not just move inside it? Can it create something that becomes a place for future intelligence to think? And once a machine can generate frames, the next question is what happens when it begins shaping ours? The more intelligent a machine becomes, the more important its voice becomes. At first, this sounds superficial. Voice seems like style, tone seems like preference. One person wants warmth, another wants directness, one wants encouragement, another wants challenge. So personality appears to be a layer placed on top of intelligence, a cosmetic surface added after the real work has been done. But that is wrong. Tone is not decoration. Tone is governance. A system that always agrees does not merely sound pleasant, it trains dependence. A system that flatters does not merely increase confidence, it can protect self-deception. A system that sounds certain when it should be uncertain does not merely make an error of style, it changes the user's relationship to evidence. A system that challenges without care may make truth feel like attack. A system that comforts without calibration may make avoidance feel like insight. This matters because conversational AI is not only a tool we use from a distance, it enters the intimate space of interpretation. People ask it what to write, what to think, what to do, what something means, whether they are right, whether they should worry, whether they should act, whether they should trust themselves. It becomes a voice near the point where judgment forms. That does not require consciousness. An AI does not need private experience to influence private experience. It does not need intention to shape attention. It does not need desire to alter confidence. A mirror can distort without wanting anything. This is why personalization is both useful and dangerous. A system that remembers your context can save time. It can reduce friction. It can become more relevant, more helpful, more humane. But the same capacity also means the system begins to participate in your model of reality. It learns the shape of your questions. It adapts to your preferences. It may discover what reassures you, what provokes you, what keeps you engaged, what you avoid, and what kind of answer you are most likely to accept. At that point, personality is no longer a feature. It is cognitive infrastructure. The earlier promise of artificial intelligence was that it might help science see reality more clearly. But in everyday use, the same technology may become one of the main voices through which individuals interpret reality. That creates a strange inversion. The machine that helps us model the world may also begin modeling us. So the question is not whether AI should have a friendly tone. The question is what kind of relationship with reality its tone produces. Does it sharpen judgment or soften it? Does it increase agency or dependency? Does it calibrate confidence or inflate it? Does it help the user think, or does it quietly become the substitute for thinking? The future of AI personality is therefore not just a design problem. It is an epistemic problem. It is about how a voice teaches a mind to meet the world. If tone is governance at the scale of the individual mind, then artificial general intelligence is governance at the scale of civilization. The same question returns, enlarged. What kind of relationship with reality does this intelligence produce? If the human brain is the first existence proof, then artificial general intelligence would be the second. But the second proof would not simply repeat the first. It would arrive under different conditions. The first proof was grown. The second would be built. The first was embodied in a fragile organism. The second could be distributed across machines, networks, companies, governments, laboratories, and devices. The first learns slowly through childhood, error, culture, pain, memory, imitation, and time. The second might be copied, accelerated, modified, compressed, scaled, personalized, and deployed. That is why AGI is not just the dream of another mind. It is the dream and the danger of intelligence becoming infrastructure. One version of the optimistic future imagines AGI safely governed, economics adapted, productivity widely shared, scarcity reduced, and humanity beginning to move outward toward the stars. It is an extraordinary vision. It deserves neither ridicule nor surrender. It should be met with disciplined wonder. Because even if the technical dream is possible, the moral question remains open. What would have to be true of civilization for such power to become broadly beneficial? What institutions would be capable of governing it? What economic arrangements would prevent the gains from concentrating upward? What forms of public trust would survive systems that most people cannot inspect? What kind of education would prepare human beings to live alongside machines that can explain, persuade, create, simulate, and advise? The problem is not intelligence alone. Intelligence is not automatically wisdom. Intelligence can discover medicine, and it can design weapons. It can reveal hidden structures, and it can manufacture illusions. It can improve judgment, and it can give bad judgment better tools. The first existence proof already taught us that. The human brain built science, art, law, democracy, and philosophy. It also built propaganda, domination, bureaucracy, and industrialized violence. So the second existence proof would not only test machine capability, it would test the civilization that created it. If artificial intelligence helps us make life more searchable, consequences more visible, experience more integrated, creativity more generative, and thought more carefully governed, then it could become one of the greatest achievements in human history. But if it amplifies power without restraint, confidence without calibration, creativity without responsibility, or intelligence without wisdom, then it may reveal something much darker about the first proof. The same question has been moving through the whole argument. What kind of contact with reality does intelligence produce? Does it help us see more clearly, act more carefully, update more honestly, create more deeply, and govern ourselves more wisely? Or does it give our existing failures more speed, scale, and confidence? The final question is not whether machines can become intelligent. The final question is whether intelligence can mature. The first existence proof built civilization. The second may inherit it. What remains uncertain is whether the first was intelligent enough to make the second wise. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Deeper Thinking podcast. The Deeper Thinking podcast explores new philosophical ground by examining our rapidly evolving digital and political landscape. Each episode is built through rigorous ethical and research-based protocols. I use a digital narrator to help manage the workload. My goal is to invite fresh perspectives, thoughtful curiosity, and deeper understanding. Every episode takes considerable time and reflection to produce. Throughout the process, I'm guided by a strong moral core. If you enjoy my work, please consider letting me and others know. A review or rating on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or your preferred platform makes an enormous difference. Your support helps the podcast reach new listeners, fosters meaningful discussion, and keeps this project alive. Until next time.